Welcome to the Brand Forum. We've got another fun episode. Josh, I am stoked for this next guest. Are you?
Yes, very much so.
Very much so. Before we jump into this episode with Mr. Vinny Rinaldi, I have something special that I found in my son's stash. My son is 9.5 years old. He has a stash, not this kind of stash, but a candy stash, a chocolate stash. And I found this hidden in the pantry. So in honor of one of my favorite brands, because it is the Brand Forum, after I do my intro, I am going to have this as my afternoon treat. So with that said, we're very excited about our next guest. Vinny is a media maestro with a founder's edge, engineering the future of advertising with one hand while juggling bedtime stories and 6 a.m. wake up with the other. A corporate transformer by day, a visionary builder by night. He blends boardroom polish with playground patience, turning chaos into clarity, whether it's entrepreneurial journeys, rethinking Hershey's marketing engine, or managing a 3-kid household with his wife. Vinny speaks fluent ROI, breathes brand narrative, and questions every lazy media metric in the book. And it's a really big book. His brain split screen, part strategist, part operator, all heart. And he's not just modernizing marketing, he's rewriting its playbook. One Reese's integration and equity negotiation at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Vinny Rinaldi.
Thank you for that intro. That was awesome.
Yeah, yes, that was.
I'm glad you brought the Reese's for the show.
I don't think my son's going to be very happy, but
yeah,
there's plenty more. You can go buy some.
Just replace it later. That's all you need to do. Well, yes, and as Jeremy said, I am very excited about this. Obviously, Vinny and I have known each other for years. For those anybody who's watching the show that knows you knows this, but I'm just going to say it out loud. Not only are you awesome at the work that you do, but in an industry of ours, which can be very tough sometimes, you are one of the nicest, most accessible people in the industry. And whether I need something, I need you to talk to a friend. Like you've been great your whole career, and so just something you should know. And I'll add that to your funeral list along with the rest of the bio. We're gonna read them. But we'll jump right into it. And so I think what we always like to kick off with is this big broader piece of like how are you balancing performance marketing and long-term brand building in a ad-centric world. It's given where the whole space is right now. Like how do you do it with the amazing brands that you have?
Yeah, so for us, like as we think about the Hershey portfolio, we actually don't think about it as choosing one over another. You have to build a system where both have to thrive. One way we always like to think about this is like sales overnight, brand over time. When we think about that, we have different moments where you think about sales. When we think about what we've done with Reese's during a Halloween campaign, it's our peak season, it's our Super Bowl where performance always matters. We're optimizing daily to make sure media is in the most relevant places. But at the end of the day, the creative idea, the cultural presence, and our emotional connection to the season, that's all part of brand building. It's not just about the sales. So if you show up in those moments, to me, we look at that through a lens of really more effective reach. So are we reaching the right people in the right context? Are we memorable while we're doing it? And if you do it right, performance and brand aren't actually competing with one another. They're actually reinforcing one another. And at the end of the day, both should thrive in these types of environments.
Yeah, by the way, I feel like it's a setup question because this is like my hill to die on. And I feel like I just got stuck in a few companies that didn't see it that way. But thankfully, we haven't had a marketer on yet that's been like, oh no, I totally get why you separate these. But I will say right now,
we will.
Yeah, we definitely will. But
somebody will challenge that.
Sales overnight, brand over time might I'll give you credit, but that might be my new favorite saying. So I'm gonna run with that one. So as you sort of spin that forward, each one, again, so many amazing brands. How do you sort of look at remaining authentic, human, connecting with consumers, in such an automated, data-centric world?
Quite honestly, it's something we think about constantly. It's probably on our minds all the time, every day. We use data and automation to get smarter about where and when we're going to show up, but we're still, the how has to come down to emotion. It can't come down to data and automation. Our brands live in so many different moments that matter. So you got the Cadbury Bunny tryouts during Easter. perfect, in integration where we show up for that moment. Or again, as I alluded to, Reese's during Halloween, we created a skeleton dance that lasted on TikTok, on Shorts, on YouTube. We didn't look to manufacture those moments. They were already there. They're authentic. We sparked them, and then we let all of the community kind of take over those micro moments. So, even in a world where machine learning and algorithms are kind of at the forefront, to me, those things are table stakes. We kind of use technology as like this new thing. It's not. You can't, though, miss human storytelling, which is what actually makes people care. It's what is the emotion behind it. It is what tugs at heartstrings. It's what makes you show up and become an iconic brand. You think about Reese's and Hershey, were, as a company, 131 years old. It didn't happen overnight. You've got to take the time to build these brands. But the more you do that in the moments that matter, it takes over everyone's emotion and human element of everything that we do.
I love that. I love that.
This week on Dishing with Divas, we're pouring an ice-cold glass of data insights. Serving up a sip of wisdom is Comscore data diva Zach Lane, Director of Global Data Partnerships at PepsiCo. Zach, do you think we have too much data as an industry, not enough, or just the right amount?
Hi, Sam. We don't have a data shortage problem in my mind. We have a data utility problem. There's more than enough data out there to drive smart decisioning, but too often it's in the wrong shape, wrong place, wrong format to actually be useful. And I think there's two core problems that undergird this. First, it's this mirage of a data overload, but really it's lacking a clear activation plan. I think many folks are collecting huge amounts of information, but without the talent, the infrastructure, the workflow, the actual people to put it all to work, it bogs down the data lake from actually being truly effective, Secondly, issue of fragmentation. Not surprising. Marketers rely on a patchwork of partners, measurement vendors, retailers, media platforms, DSPs, you name it, 1,000 more, each with their own KPIs, each with their own walled off data. Without a connective tissue, we're left with duplicated efforts and a fractured view of performance. So at the end of the day, we're not drowning in data. I think to play the analogy a little farther, we're starving for connection, if you will. Like, until we're all speaking the same language, that mirage of too much data will keep tripping us up and we'll keep running into the same problems, proving ROI, optimizing spend, and really driving business outcomes with confidence.
Data soda fountain is certainly fizzing, and advertisers are crafting crisper, more refreshing strategies than ever.
So we were talking about, from a human emotion component, before we hit the record button, I was telling you how a couple of weeks ago, I was driving from Chicago to Ohio for my wife's twin sister's wedding, and we stopped at a rest stop at a gas station, and my kids were walking through the different aisles at the rest stop, and they saw Dots and all the Dots pretzels, and all of a sudden they're oh, Dots pretzels, and I'm like, how do my 9.5 and 12.5-year-old kids know that much about Dots pretzels? Like, where did this come from?
Because Vinny's doing his job. That's why.
which is amazing.
Target children. Very clear.
But when you think about the balance between short-term performance with long-term brand equity. So, and I think about it like, wow, Dots is such an old brand, but like, how do my young kids that don't see this everywhere they go, like, how are they now all of a sudden being like, oh, can you help us figure this out as a marketer?
I mean, Dots is like almost the exception to the rule. It feels like it's taken off so fast. It is. And if you haven't tried it, for anybody who's listening, like, please do. All the different varieties. You might like some, you might not, but like, you're going to find one of the flavors that you just fall in love with. And it's funny, when we first started out, I'm like, it's going to be hard to sell a $10 bag of pretzels, isn't it? And then all of a sudden within, a year, it's one of the fastest growing businesses we've ever acquired. It's on its way to $1 billion business pretty quickly. Wow. And it's just built this iconic brand overnight, which is crazy to me. But you're right, everyone's talking about it. It's like, oh my God, I love Dots. I've had them. They're great. They're this. And you can't do all that without advertising. But then if you think about it, it's like the old way of thinking about it. Word of mouth is probably the most delivered mechanism of a brand. And the more people talk about Dots, the more everyone's getting on this train. Everyone's going after it. Everyone's buying it. So we've got such a big runway with this brand, a few other brands as we've diversified the portfolio. into a salty category, between Skinny Pop, Pirates Booty,
Less
Dots,
for evil, less for
Reese,
evil, less for evil.
Less for Evil. When you think about where we can take these things, you're talking about brands that have less than a 20% household penetration, compiled with the sweet side of the business where you've got brands like Reese's and Hershey who have a 50 or 60% share of household. So, with the way that we view this, the way that we've scaled this, to me, the sky's the limit. And the more authentic this brand continues to be part of culture, part of big moments, like the more we just see that it's going to continue to take off. Glad your kids noticed.
I'll let them know that you said that for real. So help us understand, what are the biggest challenges that you face when you're building all this mega portfolio of brands in today's landscape? Because each brand has a different kind of challenge. There are different threats, there are different opportunities.
Yeah. The sheer fragmentation of attention is just a massive challenge that we're trying to create into an opportunity. We're no longer talking about just a Super Bowl spot reaching 100 million people at once. We're trying to orchestrate across TikTok, YouTube, CTV, in-store, all these things, you name it. And on top of that, there's this pressure for immediate results. I joke sometimes and say, we've run Reese's in the Super Bowl the last 2 years. I think this year was on February 8th. I remember getting an email February 9th, midday. Hey, did it work? Kind of like, I'm not really sure how to answer this one, but sure. A lot of people saw it.
It worked. It worked.
Yeah.
But, as I was mentioning, like Reese's and Hershey's did not become household names overnight. They earned that status by showing up consistently, delivering joy, building emotional connection year after year. So the challenge is not really, that we're looking at now is how do you modernize those brands without losing the magic that made them iconic in the first place? Because that, to me, is the hardest part about brand building, is becoming an icon.
Yeah. Well, by the way, like, no small feat, because I think what's also interesting is you do play in a category where there's a ton of choice. There's a ton of volume out there. Consumption patterns are there. So the fact that you could, like you said, it's taken years and years to get to where you guys are. But to also stay there in the competitive space, I think has to be a testament to the brand building, the thoughtfulness, the connection with the consumer.
Yeah. And we do live in the most promiscuous category there probably is in the marketplace. And when you look at the category we live in, it's candy, mint, and gum. So candy, mint, and gum has a 98% household penetration. Fun fact, it is 1% more than toilet paper, which is kind of gross to also think about.
Easy. Wait, say that one. Vinny, that's crazy. Say that one more time, please.
So candy, mint, and gum as a category is 98% household penetration, which is 1% more than toilet paper.
Wow. You heard it here. It's wild.
If you dig into the data, it's probably, a gap in club share and where Costco sells out. But the reality is it's a category. It's a pretty big category. So we jokingly say our audience is everybody with a mouth. And it's true in a way because, as snacking goes, there's, a tremendous amount of occasions on every given day, week, month, and year. So you've got to win those micro moments at all times. But, it is hard to find those separations when you're a promiscuous category where people are switching in and out of brands at any given point, trying new flavors, new innovation, and et cetera.
So, all right, so I'm changing one of my questions. Because just when you said that, it struck me as
questions. Hold on, time out.
We have some, questions. Yeah, there's sometimes I have a few that I write down. But when you, because just what you talked about made a lot of sense. Do you attribute that? And I'm sure there's not a black and white answer here, but do you attribute what you're seeing to? Is it audiences? Is it channels? Is it creative? Like if you had to do a start bench cut or where would you put $1 into? Where does that look?
It's a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a good segue because, when we look at our portfolio, the goal is to win every occasion and moment. And how do you do that? Is it targeting? Is it contextual realities? Is it creative? Kind of all of the above. And I think that's what we're always challenged with is where do you put your next dollar? I think where the industry has gone, we've always, not always, I'd say over the last 10-ish years, have always put our next dollar in the most efficient driving mechanism channel. period, end of story. And I get it. It worked for a while. We've all been trying to figure out, or did it, as we have to look at it, a lot of different variables and factors, but that's kind of been the trend. I think what we need to start to do is find the middle ground, not the either or moment. Like, you can still do efficient marketing, but you can also make it more effective. And I think that's where the world is starting to kind of go back towards, is creativity, again, human connection, emotions, storytelling. Because in the sea of noise, how do you stand out? You don't stand out with whatever targeting, third party or second party or first party data you put behind it. You stand out by what you say to people. And communication has never been more important in our industry, in my opinion. And I think it's also not like, don't fully swing the pendulum the other way. Find that equilibrium, find that middle ground, balance the two really well together. And I think you'll start to see attention take over, and you'll start to stand out with a different audience base.
How do you and your team balance that? How do you find that equilibrium? Just a lot of testing and learning?
Yeah, a lot of that. There's got to be a lot of different iterations to, again, you can't spend, you don't have an infinite amount of budget to just go spend. And I don't even mean that from a media buying perspective. I mean that in a total direct marketing expense, whether it's how you show up in store from a cardboard perspective, to a digital shelf perspective with content, to a creative ecosystem on any screen. You've got to test and learn your way through it. But it all starts with the consumer, and I think as we're really kind of transforming and modernizing the way that we think about marketing in general, the goal, and it's sort of a Amazon mantra, but theirs is customer obsessed, ours is consumer obsessed in a way, because our customers are actually our retailers, and that's who we sell to. But really honing in on the consumer, what are the moments that matter? What is the way to get in with them? And I think the more we focus there, you'll find these micro moments, micro occasions to really separate yourself and create swim lanes across a portfolio of brands. And that's how we're trying to focus here and kind of test our way through each of those different moments.
So how do you see, when you're testing those micro moments, how do you see AI and machine learning helping to transform the ways that brands connect with these audiences? Because there are a lot of different audiences, and there's a lot of different segmentation and fragmentation taking place.
Wouldn't be a podcast or any marketing conversation without bringing up AI right now.
All right, we don't have to talk about AI. No.
We've been in this area. We've done a few different things here. The things that we're noticing is both it's helping us work smarter. So some of the predictive modeling to creative testing that we're going to market with and looking at, as we think about, just our investment portfolio, like how do you predict using what you've learned year after year after year with your media mix model, now having a true, large language model, learning that and pushing to prediction and forecasting in a little bit of a different way is interesting and something we're looking at. We've started to use it to think through how we accelerate content creation. And by content creation, it doesn't just mean the creative you serve on TV. It also means the Super 6 mobile assets that you deliver to a digital shelf for any retailer. How do you show up, organically in those areas? Because again, the shelf is everywhere today. Right. And, being able to do that at scale when you've got 10,000 different iterations for a PDP to show up in different ways is crazy to me. But if you can build a system that builds it quicker and, scales it, that's where we're looking to get to. But we've also learned, again, technology does not mean go lose the plot. You can optimize for clicks and views all day long. But again, if the idea doesn't connect emotionally, it's just noise. AI is an enhancer. Sure. It won't replace the way that we think about storytelling and emotional connectivity. But you can use it for tasks where you can put orange and a peanut butter cup into a system and pretty much scale it any which way you want because you've got an iconic image, product, and color behind it. So there's a lot of different ways we're looking at it.
So speaking of connections, it's always good to end on something on the personal side. So what's a TV show or movie? It doesn't have to be your favorite, but if you see it on TV, pretend your kids aren't home and you're stopping, because with the amount of kids you have, you can't just stop and watch a show. But what's that thing that's on that you're just going to stop and sit and watch it for a while?
So I've got two. One will probably be less surprising, but there's two that I always, no matter what, and I've probably rewatched them myself 3 different times on their total seasons, but one, Breaking Bad. No matter how many times I've seen it, I stop and watch. It's like the perfect mix of storytelling, tension, and character depth. And it's hard to come by in today's world. And the second, again, I don't think it'll be a huge surprise, but I've watched it so many times now that Mad Men just hits so differently every time I consume it. Now that I work in this industry, there's something timeless about how they always chase the big idea. It reminds me, even in our data-driven world, again, emotion is still so powerful in advertising. And at the end of the day, whether it was Don Draper or a Reese's ad within Halloween, like the best marketing does make you feel something. So I love to go back to that show and just kind of like think about the day-to-day I run and then like how it was run then. And there's so much of the same that happens. We just don't see it because we're only focused talking about technology.
Yeah, and less drinking during the day, but
And a lot less drinking.
Way
during the day.
less. And
For
yeah,
sure.
we're
But
not
yes.
smoking cigarettes in conference rooms either.
True.
With that said, Vinny, this has been excellent. I need to finish my peanut butter cup here. We both really appreciate
There's
you
no
hopping
wrong
on.
way to eat Reese's.
None.
Just remember that.
None. There is the only one thing I will say. It's not Reese's, people. It's Reese's. It's Reese's. Stop saying Reese's. It's
Very
Reese's.
fun debate we like to have.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much, Vinny. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Vinny.
Till the next one. Take care.
Appreciate
care.
it. Thank you.